We are live again, and welcome to Strange Journeys. I'm Tom, your ghost host. My cousin and I stood there transfixed by what we were seeing, a glowing shape of what looked like a man standing in the exact same spot we had just been in moments earlier. What was it? A ghost? A phantom? A fairy? Or something that just looked like a man? We didn't know then, and we still don't to this day, what it was. But that's what we're going to talk about today. What are we dealing with?
Do you want to take a trip with your ghost host Tom and ghost guy Tim and the executive team Andrea, Ben, Dagny, Donnie, Lewis, Lynn, Selina and Tom? Are you ready? Here we go.
And welcome back. Thank you for being with us today, watchers. Again, I am Tom, your ghost host, and that is Selina, one of the ETs. She ran in here just at the last minute before we went live, literally the last minute. She was putting on her headphones when it said 100. So, we've got an unusual one today. We're not just going to tell stories today. We're going to ask some questions along with those stories. But first, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. Remember, we provide these shows first and foremost for you, the watchers, for your entertainment. We are not, by any means, and do not claim to be, scholars or experts in any of the topics we cover. We're simply enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with these topics while doing our best to respect individual beliefs. And please remember that this show is live and nothing is rehearsed or edited out later. What you see is what you get. And please remember that you can support the show several different ways. You'll see the links down in the comments. Patreon, it's a monthly commitment. If you could do that for us, we would certainly appreciate it. Keep this thing going. And if you're not into the monthly gig, that's cool. You can do PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. And like I said, the links are below. And also, if you are watching on YouTube,
click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Like and subscribe to all these videos that Papa Tom made. Hit that notification bell up. My work here's done now.
that's right, you heard him. His work here is done. Like, subscribe, sign up for notifications. We'd certainly appreciate it. We're up to over 80 subscribers now, which is cool.
Wow, that's great.
It's slow, but it's getting there. And also remember that in the next few days, this show will be available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora, and iHeartRadio. Stitcher got out of the business for whatever reason. I don't know. And also because of that, if you've been watching the last several shows, we're not showing as many pictures as we used to. And I actually don't have any pictures today because we're just telling stories. But most of these platforms are audio-based platforms. So you couldn't see the pictures if we had them anyway. And remember, on Spotify, you can leave us a message and a tip there as well if you'd like to help support the show. Also, if you've been on our Spotify channel, you may have seen this little red question mark. I just posted a new one yesterday. It's a little mini podcast that I'm doing called What Do I Know? Where I ask a strange question and just formulate some possibilities. Look for that red check mark. So, let's see, I put one yesterday that kind of led into what we're doing today. So, check out What Do I Know on Spotify. All right. How many of you were watching 2 weeks ago when we did the encounters and extra gifts? Selina was there with me. That was a pretty wild show. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we didn't have fireworks and, gymnastic presentations or anything. So stories were crazy. Oh,
Sure.
what was your favorite?
Oh my God. I'm trying to remember now.
As she breathes into the mic.
I liked a bunch of them. I can't remember
Yeah.
an exact specific one that I liked. What about you?
Well, the one where the woman's blood type changed. She
Oh
had a
yeah, now I
liver
remember.
transplant, and they're going back checking a few months later after the transplant, and her blood type had changed from like O positive to O negative, and I didn't even know that could happen. You
Me
know.
neither. I also liked the one I thought was interesting how the man he I believe it was a heart transplant, but uh, he got it from someone who had killed himself, shot himself in the throat, and then that's
Oh
how he
yeah,
died as well. And he had also married the widow of the man that he got the uh,
right.
organ from.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
married married the
not a
woman he got the
coincidence.
heart from,
Mm-hmm.
or the widow of the man he got the heart from several years later, and then ended up killing himself the exact same way as
Mm-hmm.
the man he got the heart from.
Shot
That was,
himself in the throat. And
whew,
usually people, up here or in the mouth,
or
but not in
yeah,
the throat. So
that
that
yeah
was
that
very
is
specific and unique.
oh exactly, and that's just and so we asked the question, does this part of the spirit or soul go with that organ? Who
Hmm.
knows? That's just really wild.
And there have been
So
several movies about that kind of stuff too, kind of.
yeah, and like
There
I
was
said, I
one with
thought
Jeff
about
Fahey.
who.
Jeff Fahey was one of them.
Oh, okay. And I mean, I thought about it when I was working on the show notes, and then I thought, well, I mean, that movies are
Yeah,
cool, but they were fiction. We were talking about actual real
right.
people, and I just didn't want to get confused there. But it does make for a weird movie.
It was that.
Another one was the man that developed a love for classical music,
Mm-hmm.
and the his donor had been clutching his violin case when he got struck and killed by a car, I think it was, because he was
Yeah.
on his way to rehearsal or something because he loved classical music and was clutching his violin case when he died. And the guy that got the heart developed a love for classical music. That was just, oh man, mm, that was really wild. Watchers, if you haven't seen it, go back. It's called Encounters, an Extra Gift. And we went over some really unique stories, and it was a lot of fun. Now, on with the show. I only picked. Well, I'll get into that in a second. The story in the cold open that I used is one I've shared on this show several times. Selena, you may remember sharing that. But my cousin and I saw this glowing figure standing where we had just been. Today's show, we're going to share 10 stories. I'm just going to do 10 stories.
Okay.
And then after each story, we're going to ask the question, what was it? A ghost, a fairy, or something else entirely? Here we go. Selena, I'll start and we can just take turns.
Okay.
Or do you want the first one?
Oh, you go ahead.
I was standing in my parents' room talking to my very sick dad at the time. He was dying of stage 4 esophageal cancer. I got the feeling something was behind me. I looked towards the doorway to the living room, and something about 4.5 feet tall and fully black was peering around the corner with its hands on the door frame. I ran toward it, and it slipped back around the door. When I got to the other side of the doorway, there was nothing. My dad was completely confused when I stepped back inside the room and then I told him. People who stayed at my house in my dad's final days claimed to have seen it. My mom saw the figure on multiple occasions in multiple places until my dad passed away, and we haven't seen it since. So, what was it? Was it a ghost? Or was it a fairy? Or something else? Selena, what do you think?
Something else.
Explain yourself.
Well, if it had been a ghost, it would have been more like kind of transparent,
Right?
and I think it would have made itself known a little bit more. I
Hmm.
don't think it was a fairy because it was not. It was too big.
I
Something
don't.
else is it sounded like something that was sending was there to guide the father to the afterlife.
Ooh, ooh, that's okay.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
dressed in black, and that's what you wear to funerals.
Hmm.
And it was there until his dad passed away, and they
Well,
didn't see it again. So
was it dressed in black or just black?
true.
I'm not arguing. Well, it said it was 4.5 feet tall and fully black. So it's really not clear if it was just a
Mm-mm.
black being or wearing black. But
Right.
I mean, well, I mean, you bring up a valid point there, because they saw it in the final days of his dad's
Right.
life, and then they haven't seen it since. So it could have been something, like you said, preparing the father, the
Mhm.
dad, for his final days. I mean, the thing about the 4.5 feet tall kind of got me, you know. Um, yeah, I mean, fairies, we think small, little bitty
Yeah, like
people,
little itty bitty.
Right. But then, the little people, we've talked about puckwudgies and things like that. They're like two or
Mhm.
three, 4 feet tall.
Ah,
And
true.
and I think if I remember a fairy show with Elizabeth Parker, some of those can be 4 feet tall. So I mean, uh, I love your point of view about the something else because of the fact that they never saw it again after the man passed.
Mhm.
So that was pretty wild. And then
Yeah.
it comes back to the Black Hat Man. Now, he didn't say this one had a hat, and the Black Hat Man is usually, ceiling height. But if this thing was fully black, we're not sure exactly what he meant by that. But it could have been some kind of shadow creature as well, you know? So I think we're kind of leaning toward a something else on that one.
Yeah. I am.
Because it's not real clear. But also, you know, but what could that something else be? You know, um, if I mean, we normally think black shadows or black figures in as far as a haunting and a ghost
Mhm.
kind of thing, but like you said, it was only there in the final days of this man, and never
Right.
seen again. So,
Yeah.
could it be an angel of death?
It could have been. I was thinking like the Grim Reaper, or maybe one of the Grim Reaper's workers.
You've
I
been
guess.
watching Supernatural.
Yeah.
Wasn't that on Supernatural?
I think so.
Yeah, the
But
Grim Reaper had employees, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's why I was thinking an angel of death. And that's the thing. Throughout history, we have I'm saying culture as far as we have made that evil and dark.
mhm.
But I don't see it as necessarily being that way. If this thing, whatever it was, this creature was there to prepare this man, I don't see that as evil. You know what I mean?
No, I think he was just simply there to do his job. His
Right.
job was to take the father to the afterlife.
Yeah. Have you read Stephen King's Insomnia?
Mm-mm. No, I haven't.
The it's it's one of those big books, but it's about this old man that can't sleep, and he has insomnia, and then he starts seeing things, and it turns out
Oh.
the things he's seeing are real, and
Oh
every
wow.
person has a string coming out of the top of their head, and depending on their life essence, it's different colors, and there are beings that have like big scissors kind of things. He described it, and when their time has come, they just go over and clip the string, and then that person will eventually die. And it
Oh
wasn't an
wow.
evil thing; it was just okay. This their turn, clip their strings or whatever. I am oversimplifying it, believe me, because I can't tell stories like Stephen King, but uh, but that's what it reminds me of. All right, let's go on to story 2.
Okay. Story 2. After my parents divorced when I was a teenager, I lived with my mom. I experienced lots of paranormal happenings. Several times when I was reading in my bed, the room would start to feel really icy. Next, it would feel as if something or somebody that hated me was staring at me.
Hmm.
When I got that feeling, I would leave the room and come back an hour later. Sometimes during the day, I would see a shadow figure sneaking along my bedroom walls. Something in the flat was pretending to be my dog. Yeah. I went into my room and heard a deep growl from under the bed. My dog
Mm.
wasn't capable of making a noise that deep. It sounded like either a really big dog or a man doing his best dog impersonation. Other times my dog would whimper and pace in the room next to mine, but wouldn't come when called, as if he was afraid of something in the hallway. When I moved in with my father, the paranormal activity stopped. Ghost, fairy, or something else.
Hmm. Well, I mean, your first thought would go to, um, at first seeing shadow figures, thinking ghost. But then the deal with the dog or something
Yeah.
impersonating the dog, I kind of go to one of the fairies that, is a trickster,
Oh, okay.
you know, and trying to impersonate the dog to fool this person or who, whatever. I I don't know. My phone was ringing. Sorry.
Oh.
Uh, I don't know who it was. Wasn't Lynn? She's over making soap with Amber today.
Oh,
So
how
Amber had
fun.
planned a big soap making day, so she wanted to be there with her daughter. So that's pretty
Oh,
cool.
that is
But
cool.
yeah, I mean, she hears this growling from under her bed, but it's not her dog, and so that makes me think. Of course, your brain could also go to a demon.
That's where I went.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because of the growling.
Because of the growling and because of the dog not wanting to be near it.
Yeah,
Dogs are very, very protective. I know mine are. And
yeah.
if they won't go somewhere, I won't go there either.
Makes sense.
If they don't like a person that comes to my house, that person doesn't come back.
There you go. There's a
Yep.
meme on Facebook about that. Um,
Mhm.
that I don't like anybody my dog don't like or something like that. But but yeah, I mean, is this two separate entities they're dealing with here? Because they saw a shadow figure sneaking along the bedroom walls,
It
and
could
then
be.
they hear growling underneath the bed, and the dog whimpering and afraid of something in the hallway. You know, um, I mean, again, if we look at it as one entity, then we could be talking about some kind of fairy,
Yeah.
with the trickster element and, um, you know, um, just seeing a shadow figure because, what's the, crap? My mind just went blank. Um, this happens to me just about every show. I think it's something that would be, would fit perfectly, but but that, like that shimmering, the whatever they call it, the fairies can kind of blind you where you can't really see them,
Mhm.
and so that's what I'm thinking: the shadow figure along the walls, and then sounding like a dog, trying to make that person think it was the dog under the bed. But she says that it was too low to be a growl from her dog, or she said it was either a really big dog or a man impersonating a dog.
Right.
So, that I'm not really leaning toward a ghost on this one or something else. I'm leaning toward a fairy. That's just
Okay.
me. Make sense? Clear as
Makes
mud?
sense.
All right.
Yes.
Story 3. I mean, what do you think? These are creepy, weird stories, aren't they?
They
I mean,
are.
I came along I found some really wild ones here. Um, we have a comment. Isaac, fairies are real and people can learn how to see past the shimmering that you just mentioned.
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
Isaac, first off, thank you for being a watcher, but you are
Yes.
correct, sir. Um, Need to go back and find our fairy tales shows with Elizabeth Parker because she has a lot more information than I do on fairies. We're just asking the question in these stories today: could it be a fairy? Um, and thank you for commenting. But that would be cool to learn how to see past the shimmering. That would be so cool. But just to back up, in in my What Do I Know little mini podcast on Spotify, I share again the story about where Elizabeth went into a home. They were told that they were having poltergeist activity, and when she got there, she figured out that it was a brownie, a type of fairy. So that's kind of what led me to the show today. Looking at these stories and say, hey, what could it be? Our third story. I worked as a forensic nurse in a hospital's lockup unit. We had one older lady who swore she was being haunted and abused by a demon she would call Tiberius. So many crazy things happened while she was on the unit. We'd go into the room, do normal care, leave, and seconds later she'd start screaming bloody murder. We'd run into the room to find her looking like she'd been in a fight with a boxing champ, bloody, black eyes, markings all over her body. No one ever saw her doing this stuff to herself. Things would get moved around the room by themselves. At one point, she was in protective restraints because the doctor thought she was hurting herself. There was no way she could have moved or done anything to herself while in these restraints. But new marks would appear on her tray, and would, but new marks would appear on her body, or her tray and cart would be tossed across the room. The room was secure, so there was no way someone else was doing this. When we asked her questions, she'd just say, it was Tiberius. After she was discharged, we always had trouble with that room. If there was going to be a rapid response or a code, it happened in that room. One night, a guard reported lights blinking on and off. It was that room. So, ghost, fairy, or something else? What do you think?
I'm gonna have to go with demon
Well, that's what the lady
again.
said.
Yeah, I mean for it to hurt this lady.
Right.
An older lady too.
Hmm.
That's just evil.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
and
poltergeists have
beating
been
her
known to
up.
do the same things.
Yeah.
But then it begs the question, is a poltergeist a demon? I don't know.
Mm,
Who knows? But the fact that it could actually leave bloody.
mhm.
Well, her lips would be bloody, her eyes would be black.
Mhm.
You
Throwing
know,
stuff all over the place too.
something. Um, you know, they thought she was doing it to herself, but they put her in restraints and things would still happen. Um, what if she was? What if she had multiple personalities?
Oh yeah,
You know, uh,
that's true.
could it be something else like that? I don't know. I mean, I'm I'm really backing up and a lot of my belief systems when it comes to the spirit world and angels and demons and things of that nature. And so I don't know. Um, like you said, our first thought is demon. That's what the lady said, a demon. But Lynn and I were talking about this yesterday. When when God created us, we were the supposedly the pinnacle of His creation. The
Mhm.
humans were
The
it.
chosen ones.
Right. And that angels and, well, eventually demons were put or were below man.
Mhm.
That they were, it was like God created angels and said, oh, I can do better, and created humans. Is
Right.
that's basically the doctrine and theology
Mhm.
of the Christian church.
Yeah.
So therefore, that means humans are more powerful than angels and demons. And, I'm just backing up and looking at everything again. So if that's the case, the only time a demon or a fallen angel could do this is if we allow them, I guess, right?
Right.
And supposedly we are higher than the angels, and that's supposedly what a demon is a fallen angel. Just
Yeah.
something to think
Yes,
about. I
sir.
think we're stuck on something else here.
Yes, definitely.
It's not a ghost. It's not a fairy. It's definitely something else. Very possibly a demon.
Hmm.
Well, let's go to story number 4.
Just makes you wonder if she ever smelled sulfur.
Hmm. So you've been watching Supernatural again. There you go.
Okay.
Getting your theology from Supernatural.
It's a good show.
Yes, it is. And they need to pour salt around that room. Well, that's another thing. Anything weird from then on that happened, it happened in that room.
Mm-hmm. There's,
So it kind of makes you wonder.
there's something attached to that room.
Yeah, and if it didn't start, and it doesn't sound like anything was going on before that. So did she?
Maybe it followed her.
Yeah, maybe it came in with her.
Mm-hmm.
So
It was attached
yeah,
to something one of her belongings, and then chose to stay for whatever reason, maybe.
true.
Something like that.
Number 4.
Okay. Number 4. I've never lived in a haunted house, but my mother did as a teen, writes Reddit.com user Patented Space Hook, recounting a true event. Other houses on her street had strange things going on too. A few homes away from her lived a family. One night, the daughter went to bed with a bad headache. The next day, she was dead. She'd passed away from an aneurysm.
Mm.
After her funeral, the family went away to get their minds off the tragedy, and the father asked my uncle, my mom's brother, to check on their pets. My mom and dad, who were dating at the time, went with him. My mother had heard there was a grand piano and she wanted to play it.
Mm.
My dad was studying to be a veterinarian. After entering the house, my uncle and my father headed to the basement to see the animals, and my mother went to the piano on the ground floor. She was playing it when she felt something brush her ankles. She thought a cat must have left the basement and walked past her. She kept playing, and then she felt it again. She looked under the piano and saw nothing. When she started again, she felt hands clasp her legs tightly.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. She dashed to the basement door, called my uncle and father, and waited for them. Back outside, my uncle could tell my mom was rattled and asked what was wrong. She told him what happened, and he turned white.
Uh-oh.
A game with her father. When he played the piano, she'd crawl underneath, grab his ankles, and push his feet up and down on the pedals.
Whoa.
Ghost, fairy, or something else.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna go with ghost.
Oh, yeah, I kind of lean toward a ghost there.
Definitely.
Well, especially since that's what the girl that died used to do with her dad when he'd be playing the piano. She'd go, ooh, that would be creepy.
That would be
That would be
very,
creepy.
very
Oh, we
creepy.
got some more comments.
Oh.
Okay. Isaac spoke back up to learn how to see past the shimmer, stay up all night, and then go into nature alone in the morning and try not to run into people all morning. Bring a screen door mesh and use it to filter your vision. Have a good time and try to appreciate the plants and soil and water. Acknowledge that all the elements have a spirit similar to the human spirit.
Oh, cool.
That's very good you bring that up, that
I
the
like
elements
that.
have a spirit, because I think in some these cases that something else could be an earth spirit and an elemental as they've been called. But
Yes.
Isaac, thank you for your insight.
Yes, thank you.
That's unique. I mean, some people would look at that, bring a screen door mesh and use it to filter your vision, but you've got a point there, because sometimes it's almost like our vision gets distracted by other things, and if you can put that screen mesh there, I can see where you're going with that, Isaac. That's a good one. Thank you.
Yes,
All right. But yeah, I think we're leaning to ghost on this one.
definitely.
That especially I mean, it's no coincidence.
Mm,
You know, I mean, if she'd been playing the piano somewhere else in another building, then you'd be like,
mhm.
yeah, that's kind of weird. What is that? But in the house where the girl died, and that girl that died used to do this to her dad when he was playing the piano. Yeah, I think we're looking at ghosts. Hmm. Okay, this one, this one's kind of fun. Uh, yep, Isaac, that's right. That's what I was alluding to. It helps you unfocus your vision which is what is necessary.
Oh
You're
yeah.
onto something there, Isaac. I think you got something going there. I appreciate you commenting. Um, I will have to try that. And I don't know why I just thought of this, but um, we had a comment several weeks ago on our Strange Friends group, in
Mhm.
our Strange Friends group, and looking for a medium. And so I contacted them privately. They posted anonymously, which I appreciated that. And so I contacted them privately, and anyway, um, they he was having some activity in his home and it was bothering him. And he was close by to where I live, so I got him hooked up with some mutual friends of ours, Selena.
Mhm.
I'm not going to broadcast everything publicly, just to say that they met last night and they started dealing with uh, possible poltergeist or maybe other issues in this
Oh,
person's
okay.
home. And so they met last night, and they said, okay, we're starting the path to deal with all this. So I thought that was good news. And
That is good.
so, like I said, they got with me, I got with our friends, and they got together, and so I thought that was kind of cool. All right, now this next story, number 5, is kind of fun. Um, my neighbor Diane and I had a playful poltergeist for years, and we called it Billy. Um, he says, I'd come home and find something put in a weird place, milk in a cupboard, toilet paper in the fridge, laundry detergent in the bathtub. Diane once called to ask Billy Diane once called to ask if Billy had been around because she couldn't find a gallon of milk.
Ugh.
We finally found it outside on her back steps. And sugar. This person says, darn sugar. Every morning my sugar bowl was empty.
Oh
When
wow.
I'd had enough, I would point to Diane's home and yell, go see Diane. Get this. Within 5 minutes, I'd get a call. Thanks a lot, she'd say.
That's funny.
He'd gone and pulled shenanigans at her place. This occurred for the entire 2 years we lived there. No one believed us, not even our husbands. My mother thought someone was stealing from us when we were sleeping or out of the house. My sister believed something was going on but didn't know what. I still can't explain any of it.
Oh,
So,
that's funny.
ghost, fairy, or something else?
Mm,
I mean, yeah, it
very.
could be a ghost, a poltergeist, but
Yeah.
again, like I said, with Elizabeth, she went into a house being told it was poltergeist activity, only to find out that it was a brownie.
Mhm. That's probably what it
So,
was.
yeah, I mean, especially, um, I mean, we get the insinuation in poltergeist events that there is an evilness
Mhm.
attached to it somehow. We get a dark sense.
Yeah. It's
But
not.
this, it doesn't sound like they had that. It was
No,
all fun and jovial,
it was a
you know?
just playing around. It might have been
Right.
if it was a ghost, it might have been a little kid.
True. That's true. So, I'm thinking, yes, Isaac, you're right. Could be a lot of stuff. It
Eh,
could be a lot of stuff.
yeah.
And that's why I'm doing this, Isaac, is to let people see, let's not make assumptions, you know. Like I said, when Elizabeth went into that home, everybody was saying it was poltergeist, but when she got there, she found out it was something else.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm doing the show this way. We're looking at it. Could it be a ghost, a fairy, or something else? And this one could be a poltergeist. It could be a ghost of a child playing pranks. It
Yeah.
could be a brownie, a fairy. Um, as some people have said, it's gotten popular on Harry Potter books, a house elf. It could be an earth spirit or an elemental because they've been known to be jokesters and pranksters. Um, could be a leprechaun because they love
Yeah.
pulling shenanigans, and that's what made me think of a leprechaun because this person actually used the word shenanigans, and and isn't that where we get the word shenanigans from
I
the
think so.
from the Irish?
Yeah.
Oh, but I thought it was so cool. She'd get fed up and say, "Now go see Diane," and Diane would just immediately give her a call. What did you do? Why did you send him back over here?
She knew what was going on.
Oh yeah, I just thought that was so much fun. All right, let's go to story number 6.
Okay. One night when I was 10, I was woken up by my bedroom door opening, followed by something sitting on my bed. Recalls Reddit.com user Commendo4 of a childhood brush with a very persistent ghostly apparition. I felt my leg graze and the bed sink under a person's weight.
Mm,
It's just Mom, I thought, and I opened my eyes. It was not my mom. I found an eyeless boy. He had black, empty sockets
ooh,
and about my age sitting at the foot of my bed. He extended his hand, and it was a little box. And it was a little box. I was startled but reached out. He pulled back. I reached again and said, "Give it." Then I blinked, and when I reopened my eyes, he was gone.
mm,
But I could still see the imprint where he'd sat on my bed.
wow.
Now, fast forward 5 years. My girlfriend came over to do homework. After she finished, she took a nap while she waited for her parents. When they arrived, I tried waking her up. She opened her eyes suddenly, looking up at a corner where the wall met the ceiling. She pointed there and went back to sleep. I shook her again. She came to full consciousness, and I explained what she'd done. She looked haunted.
Mm,
Up on the wall, I saw a little boy with no eyes. He was there in Spider-Man pose, staring at me. I freaked out and told her my story about the same kid.
wow.
Fast forward another 5 years. I was with the same girlfriend, and we had a 2-year-old. We were living in my parents' house in my old room. My daughter started waking up at the same time every night, and she'd talk. After a while, I noticed she had almost the same conversation every night. I playfully asked her once whom she was talking to. She said, "It's a little boy. He's nice. He's lost and he's looking for his mommy." My daughter's nightly conversations continued until we got our own place later that year.
Wow.
Ghost, fairy, or something else.
Mm. Isaac commented while you were reading the story that poltergeists are the only paranormal activity that actually scares him, and
Wow.
I get that. When you're standing there and things start moving around you, yeah, that can be freaky. I understand. But this guy says that this kid came in and sat down on his bed.
Mhm.
Yep, ghosts are scary too. Glad I'm not a medium. I hear you, man.
Oh
I
yeah.
hear you, Isaac. Yeah, I've got a few friends who are mediums, and like I said, Elizabeth Parker says she had to learn how to turn it off.
Oh
She
yeah.
said, she said because you can't be walking up in a grocery store and approach somebody and say, "Would you like to speak to your long dead grandfather?" That's just not cool. So you got to learn how to
Mm-mm.
turn it off. Um, but yeah, this guy was eyeless, but he described them as black sockets. So you know what that made me think of?
Mm-mm. What?
Black-eyed kids.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, but they were very specific, saying that it did not have eyes, but the
Right.
sockets were pure black. Could that be a black-eyed kid? I don't know. I mean, the little girl speaking to the little boy kind of makes me lean toward a ghost, but the other stuff kind of makes me think of something else. Could this be a black-eyed kid? I think that's one of the creepiest things out there,
Yes.
in my opinion. The knot deer and the skinwalkers and things like that are creepy. But a little kid
Mm-hmm.
that has black eyes or no eyes, I'm sorry, they're, that is probably the creepiest thing. You know, I'd have a problem with that. Of
Oh yeah.
course, I would like to talk to them. Be like, "What are you doing out this time of night? Where's your parents?" So,
Well, he's looking for
but
his mommy, so.
yeah, I mean, but then the story of the black-eyed kids. They're trying to play on your empathy.
Oh yeah.
All of the stories. I need to come in and call my mother to come get me, and then they use all this formal, out-of-date language. And what one of them asked for the telegraph,
Oh
come in
yeah.
and use a telegraph. So those are freaky. So in this one, like I said, with the conversations the little girl was having, I want to lean to a ghost.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
But but the thing about the eyes makes me want to lean to something else. You know, so I'm not sure. This one's kind of up in the air. Um, you know, I mean, it didn't do anything. That's the thing. I mean, it carried on a conversation with the young girl, but when the guy and the girlfriend saw it, 5 and 10 years earlier, it didn't say anything. It didn't interact with them. So that was just. What do you think?
Um, I was leaning towards Ghost, but since you brought up the black-eyed children, I'm probably gonna say the black-eyed children.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
one of
that's a
them.
real possibility. I mean, they do carry on conversations.
Mm-hmm.
The black-eyed children do carry on conversations with people. So um, yeah, I'm glad it stopped. I'm glad they moved out of there. It
Yeah.
would be interesting to go to, where he grew up there because they were living at his parents, living in his old bedroom, to go back and see, kind of figure out the history of that place, you
Yeah.
know, because they saw something weird.
Very weird.
Excuse me. Number 7. When I was 37, I went to my high school reunion. I flew into the nearest airport and rented a car. The distance was about 35 miles through a very rural and almost abandoned part of the country. Hold on a second. Okay, Isaac, I'm only going to mention this once because it's local lore where I'm from and it's risky to mention around here. Ooh, stick Indians will come if you whistle in certain woods after dark. You might. We actually talked about stick Indians on a previous show. I think it was one we did on the little people. It may have been Bridgewater Triangle, but or it was either Pukwudgies. I don't remember, but we did talk about stick Indians, and you are correct, sir. You got to be careful where you whistle and what you whistle and that kind of thing. Um, Lewis Powell, one of our ETs, talked about in the mountains of South Carolina. One of his Native American friends actually told him the name of the little people, and one night he was walking up a road in the mountains and was under his breath muttering the name of the little people, trying to pronounce it correctly. And he heard
Ooh.
children, like sounded like children giggling right off the road in the woods. He said he
Funny.
he doubled his pace and got out of there quickly and was telling his Native American friend, and he told him that it was the little people making fun of him because he couldn't pronounce their name. And so, but she says, that's fine. And it's great that he got out of there because if you happen to see them, it's like a 7-year moratorium. You cannot speak of them or you cannot speak of the sightings. And if you do, they'll take you and you'll never be seen again.
Oh
So he says,
wow.
I'm glad I didn't see them. I just heard them and ran.
Oh, that's
Yes.
freaky.
Okay. This guy's flying into his high school reunion. He was 37. The distance was about 35 miles through a very rural and almost abandoned part of the country. About 3 miles outside of town, I see someone on the side of the road flagging me down. It turned out to be one of the guys that I went to high school with, Jim. using a different name, gets in the car and we start talking. I had not seen him in 20 years, but he still looked the same, maybe a little older. We get to town and I ask him if he wants to come to the VFW and have a drink. He says, "No, just take me home." Jim's parents had lived only a few blocks from my grandmother's house, and so I turned in that direction, but he said to take him to the outskirts of town. There was a mobile home park out there, and I figured that's just where he lived. When we reached the end of the turnoff, he said, "Just drop me here. It was good to see you again." And he walked off into the night. I went on to the VFW, met some of my old classmates, and we started talking. And as we were talking about who's coming to the reunion, who's not, I mentioned that I had just picked up Jim 3 miles east of town and dropped him off at his place. Everyone got quiet. Even the guy singing karaoke stopped and laid down his mic. Barb, I guess this was a woman, I'm sorry. Jim died on that curve 8 years ago. Rolled his car. We were all at his funeral, I was told. I started to feel real dizzy, and I went out to the car to take some deep breaths. And there on the seat of my car was the local newspaper from 8 years ago with his obituary showing. She says, "I still have the paper." Ghost, fairy, something else?
I think a ghost.
Yeah, looking like a ghost there. I mean, how many times has this happened around the country? Resurrection Mary in Chicago. Um, where was that? The redheaded, was it in Kansas? The redheaded hitchhiker that just sat in the back seat or whatever. Um, oh, I can't remember now. We talked about several of those haunted hitchhiker stories on a previous show. There's one right down in South Alabama at Gulf Shores. There's a bridge going over in the Gulf Shores, and there's a local lore of a hitchhiker that you pick up on one side of the bridge and take him over, and by the time you get over the bridge, he disappears out of your car.
Yeah.
Yep, Isaac, America is a big place. Yeah, the hitchhiker story has happened time and time again. We touched on several of those and I think in our first Strange Highways show. But yeah, I'm leaning to ghosts there. But like I said, this has happened so many times around the country and around the world. I think we even uncovered some in other countries, but there's several here in the United States. And remember, Dagny has met Resurrection Mary. Do you remember that? She's from Chicago,
Uh-huh.
and they went to the cemetery where Resurrection Mary claims they say she's buried in that cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And as they were pulling into the driveway, this figure appeared in the back seat with Dagny, and they rode around the cemetery together.
Oh, funny.
So Dagny has met Resurrection Mary. So yeah, I think we're leaning to ghost there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Though we could go with a fairy on that, but I am leaning more to a ghost. All right, go ahead.
All right.
Number 8.
Okay. Marlene settled onto her side of the bed and patted Jack's pillow beside her, said psychic medium Christy Robinette. A year had gone by, but Marlene was still adjusting to widowhood. Maybe it was crazy to think that after 40 years of marriage, she would ever adjust.
Uh-oh. Come back
Rolled
to
in-
us, Selena.
Huh?
You froze up there. I was just saying, come back to us, Selena.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Elmer the Golden Retriever seemed to understand this was the very first. That cold, moonless night when Marlene returned alone from the hospital, Elmer did something he's never done before. He jumped up onto Jack's side of the bed and lay his head on the pillow.
Mm.
Jack would never have allowed it, Robinette pointed out. But Marlene didn't shoo him off. Instead, she laid down next to Elmer and let the peaceful sound of his snoring lull her to sleep. The next night was the same night and the night after that. Over the past year, it has grown into a comforting routine. But not tonight. Tonight was the first time
Mm.
Elmer had left Marlene alone in the bed since Jack's passing. But hearing nails clicking on the wood floor downstairs, Marlene recognized the sound of Elmer requesting outsies.
It's
With a
time to go.
sigh, yep, gotta go. With a sigh, Marlene made her way down to the stairs to the foyer. But Elmer wasn't pacing in front of the big oak door. Rather, he was dancing, and
Wow.
wagging his tail, a wiggling and bowing, just like he used to do when Jack would come home from work.
Hmm.
To Marlene, it felt as if Jack had come home, and Robinette, who is known for her remarkable intuition about these things, believes that it is indeed what happened. Ghost, fairy, or something else.
Hmm. Again, we can lean to a ghost there,
Ghost.
but yeah, I mean, but pets are attuned to things like we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of my it was my latest "What Do I Know" segment. We talk a little bit, not about their intuition, but about um, how people see their pets that have passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we see uh, the ghost of a dog or a cat that we had as pets, why don't we see elephants, ghost of elephants,
Yeah.
and cows and bears? Why don't we see their spirits? I don't know. I was just positing a question. So I would appreciate anyone's feedback if you go to the Spotify and look for the red question mark. And I asked some questions. I would love your comments on those. But yeah, I mean, but over a year after the man passed, the dog, the golden retriever, would lay down in his part of the bed
Yeah.
with his head on the pillow. And one night, he doesn't. He runs to the door just like when the man would come home and was acting like he had come home again. Maybe he did, but do ghosts do that? I mean, it was a year. That's what's weird about this story. You know,
Yeah. But maybe Jack was giving his wife enough time to heal before he came back to visit.
mm,
Also, our time and ghost time is probably totally different.
true. There is a different dimension there.
Hmm.
I mean, that's one thing. Elizabeth Parker, and I know I mention her a lot, but she
Yeah.
says we don't. I mean, there are so many other dimensions out there we don't know.
Hmm.
It's just really wild. And I mean, it just kind of puzzling to me. You know, why didn't the dog, yeah, Elmer, why was it a year later? If Jack had passed, where did he go for a year? I mean, you're right. We cannot assume that the time is the same in that
Hmm.
realm, whatever that realm is. But at the same time, why? If where did he go? Where did Jack go? And then to show back up a year later, I mean, that one is a puzzler to me. And I'm not saying I'm again. You've heard me say it on this show before. The only true and irrevocable evidence of the
Hmm.
paranormal and supernatural is personal experience. If they experience this, I accept it. But it just makes me like, what happened here? What's going on here? And that is the only thing that makes me want to lean towards something else. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I
Because
see.
if Jack passed, we say because paranormal investigators are the experts, of course. They know
Hmm.
everything about the supernatural and paranormal, which is why they investigate, right?
Right.
And you do understand the sarcasm that I'm dribbling with there. We don't know is my point.
Right.
But the understood assumption is that, say, um, that was his home for all those years. He passed away. So the assumption is that his spirit stays there, where he's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's, like I said, that's just a general assumption that we've all made in ghost hunting. Because we ask when we're ghost hunting, did you live here?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the other one? Did you die here?
So you shot here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we ask those questions in our paranormal investigation. So we're making that assumption that that spirit has a connection there. So that just puzzles me where if Jack, and it sounds like he passed away in a hospital, but that was his home.
Mm-hmm.
Where was he during that all that time? If we assume that that spirit, when they pass, they stay where they're familiar, why didn't Elmer, the golden retriever, sense anything until a year later? I don't know. That's the only thing that makes me want to say, this could be something else. Make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. Because sometimes I don't make sense.
No, you make perfect sense. I'm still leaning towards ghosts, but that's just
Yeah.
me.
No, that's fine. Because one thing about the fairies and tricksters, um, there is, and there is another thing. Isaac mentioned the stick Indians. There's also the shapeshifter. And could there
Yes.
be a shapeshifter in the spirit world that made Elmer, the puppy dog, think that that was really Jack coming home and Jack's not anywhere around? I don't know. I'm not accusing them of making up any stories. I'm just saying there's some possibilities here that just that puzzles me. I'm not saying that it's not Jack coming back home. I'm just wondering, where was he at for a year? I mean, in his brain, it might have been 5 minutes. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But on this side of it, it was a year. So,
Yeah.
all right.
I, but I would think a dog would. Animals can sense things,
There's that.
so
Yes.
I would think that this is just my opinion. Would think the dog would know
Would
if
know.
that was not his owner.
Right. You've got a valid point there. You are correct. So, like I said, it just puzzles me.
Right.
So, I mean, the general consensus in hearing that story is a ghost. I understand that. Story number 9. On October 13th, 1877, Robert Schmall, was hanged after a trial that found him guilty of a terrifying and inexplicable murder spree. The townspeople were filled with so much anger and hatred that they left his body hanging for days. The tale says that not one of the townspeople demonstrated even a shred of remorse, let alone forgiveness. Since then, Schmel has been said to haunt the town. Those who have seen him said he appears as a ghastly male figure. But as soon as the figure registers in your mind, it disappears into the darkness. Ghost, fairy, or something else. I mean, automatically we want to say ghost, that
Ghost.
he's sticking around. But I just want, you know, I mean, again, I hate to say, Elizabeth has meant so much to the show and has her times on the show. She's only been on the show 3 or 4 times, but good night. You need to go listen to every show that she's been on because what she says is just beyond amazing. I asked her one time why, if, like I mentioned earlier, if we assume as paranormal investigators that the spirit is attached to wherever they lived or wherever they died, then why do we see activity in graveyards and cemeteries? They never lived there. They didn't even die there.
Mm.
Their bodies were just brought there to be put in the dirt. So technically, there's no connection whatsoever between that person and the place where their bodies are laying. So why is there activity? And
That's a good
Elizabeth
question.
says that we bring the activity. It's our energy. that brings, anything like that into a graveyard or cemetery. And again, that just makes me ask why. So why does our energy do that? We get EVPs, we get shadow figures, we get all this crazy, weird stuff when we investigate cemeteries. And so, with that being said, that kind of makes me wonder about this story. There was so much anger and hatred on the part of the townspeople. Could that be what's triggering the sightings and not necessarily Robert's spirit, his ghost? You see what I mean there?
I see.
It's almost as if, I'm theorizing here, almost as if their anger and hatred has created a tulpa, which is a thought being, an entity brought into reality because of everybody thinking the same thing. And if that town had so much anger and hatred toward, and I don't know what he did, but it was enough for an entire town to hate him so great that they wouldn't even cut his dead body down from where it was hung.
Yeah.
So did they create a supernatural tulpa because of their focused hatred on this one individual? Or is it just a ghost and Robert haunts the town? That's why I'm saying I'm kind of leaning toward something else on that
Okay.
one. I mean, we've mentioned tulpas on the show
Mhm.
before, but we've never really, dug down on them. So we're going to have to, because it keeps coming up over the 3 years, a little over 3 years now that we've been doing the show. Tulpas keep popping up. All right, close us out with the last story.
Okay. My dad used to work as a corrections officer at a rural prison. He drove the perimeter of the property for his entire shift, where he would check empty buildings for runaway inmates. It was generally a boring job. One night, my dad was parked on a hill reading a magazine when he started to feel a thumping in his body. He described it as the feeling you get when speakers are playing a song with really heavy bass.
Oh, yeah.
He put the magazine down and checked his rearview mirror, where he saw someone outside the truck. He grabbed his pistol and jumped out of the truck with his weapon drawn. Outside the truck, he realized it was a procession of Native Americans walking through the truck
Wow.
and directly through his seat,
Wow.
only to disappear at the exact spot he was sitting. He said it was clear they were ghosts because many of them appeared injured. This went on for a few seconds, and when the whole procession disappeared, he called the other perimeter guy on his walkie to try to explain, and the other guy almost immediately stopped communicating.
Uh-oh.
Turns out the other guy had seen this happen before but didn't believe it was ghosts, so he wouldn't talk about it. Ghost, fairy, or something else.
Guess where my brain goes? And it's not ghost. It's something I've mentioned on this show time and time again. A portal, a time vortex.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, I'm not discounting their story. He saw it. He saw it.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't necessarily assume that was ghost. What if
True.
there is what's called a thin place right there in that location, and at certain times you will witness. Wonder if the Indian saw him. You know, they're like, what is this weird, transparent, big, animal-sized thing floating through us? you know, um,
That's true.
because I mean, I think so many times, well, like when we talked about Gettysburg,
Right. Gettysburg.
and they see this regiment of people walking through. Are we looking at actual ghosts of people that died there? Now, the
Mhm.
reason I say a possible time vortex or a time slip is because, especially in like Gettysburg and Shiloh in different battlefields, they will see entire regiments come through. Now, I think the odds are totally out of form for a whole regiment to have died together while they were marching, and now they're stuck in eternity marching through there. You see
Mhm.
what I'm saying? The odds
I
of
do.
all of them dying at that moment are just beyond ridiculous. So, to me, it would make more sense if it were an opening in the time space continuum or whatever you want to call it, the weebly wobbly timey wimey thing, that we
Right.
just look through and we're seeing, and it's not a completely open. What was it in the Bible? I think it was Paul even mentioned we see through a glass darkly, and that's what I'm talking about. We can see what's going on over there, but we can't see it real clear, you know. And maybe it's not a two-dimensional thing, and then maybe it's just like a cloud that we can just see in, and we see transparent people. But what if it's not really ghosts, and we're looking back in time and
Oh
seeing
yeah.
them, like on the Route 66 show where the little girl's playing hopscotch,
Mhm.
and cars drive through her, and they can see, stuff on the other side of her through her, because she's transparent, but she's sitting there playing hopscotch. That's why I want to go something else here, and I'm thinking a time portal. Not necessarily portal. I don't like that word because it sounds like a doorway and opening something we can go through. It's not. And what I'm, thinking here is not something we can go through, just something we can see through.
Like the dimension.
Yeah, see another dimension or, back in time. And again, goes back to my other theory. So if we see spirits of dogs and cats, why can't we see bears and elephants and you
Right.
know that kind of thing? Why again? The what do I know segment I just put up was about this very thing. Why don't we see ghosts of cavemen? If we're looking through a time portal, you know, we see these historical things, people in period clothing, but and sometimes we'll see indigenous people or Native Americans. But how come we don't see anything older than that? Again, I'm getting off into my "What Do I Know" segment, but on this one, I think that's what it was. I mean, I do not have all the answers. I am not an expert by any means, but he's sitting there and he's watching this Native American processional. So again, like the regiments, did they all die right there together? And the odds of all of them dying together at the same time, I don't know how many people he saw, but he said it was a procession and there was drum beats and that kind of thing. So it was almost like a parade.
Mhm.
But did they all die at the same time and now their ghosts are stuck there? That's why I'm not leaning to ghost. I'm leaning to a time portal or vortex. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yes, I agree with you.
Well, it's about time somebody does, doggone it. And yeah, that's what it looks like to me. And then the other guy just wouldn't even talk to him about it. Nope, nope, nope. Mm-mm,
Yeah.
and this is why I'd love to see something like this because this is where my brain was going. And what was it? Lewis told the story about in some state park. This couple was walking down this road and they saw a, a group of people walking through a crowd of people walking toward the church this couple had just passed, and they were all dressed in their finest. And but it wasn't. It was from hundreds of years ago. It wasn't anything recent. And they thought it was reenactors at first until they got past them, and then they disappeared. Oh,
Neat.
Isaac, you've been awesome today. I've also always wondered if the spirit world is impossible to comprehend, but it just appears to us in whatever form. Bingo! You just nailed it.
Yes, definitely.
If someone into aliens, then they see it as aliens. If it's fairies, they see it as fairies. I
Right.
think you nailed it, Isaac, right there. You know, um,
Oh yeah.
because that's been mentioned on the show before, especially with the Hat Man. The people that see the Hat Man, there's a theory that we see the type of hat that we're familiar with seeing. That was just one of the thoughts that somebody mentioned on our Hat Man show. But you are right, sir. I believe that
Yeah.
you know that our purview. How can I say this? Um, defines what we experience. Our belief systems define what we see and hear, especially if we're into paranormal investigations. And that's why I personally am trying to get away from, you know, ghost hunting. Not that I'm against it. I just think there's so much more out there. I mean,
Yeah.
Will Elric even mentioned it on show one time. He said that could be, I don't remember what we were talking about, but he said that could be an earth spirit, an earth energy. Yes.
Hmm.
Um, into quantum physics, they see portals or wormholes or quantum aberrations, etc. But really, it's all from the same source. I believe you are correct, sir.
Oh yeah.
Isaac, um, man, stay in touch with us. You got something going on there. I enjoy everything, every bit of input that you've had this afternoon. This has been
Oh yeah.
awesome, and because and then that's the reason I wanted to do the show this way instead of just telling stories. We've told creepy stories since we started this show, but I wanted to stop on each story and say, "Hey, is this really a ghost?" Not to discount the storyteller, the experiencer, but to kind of delve into it. Could this be something else? Like when we did the Mantis Man, you know,
Hmm.
and we told the story of the man saying, "Oh, I felt pure evil." Well, yeah, I mean, but at the same time, this is something so totally alien to you. Not saying necessarily it was alien, it's just alien from his purview, from that experiencer's point of view. It was so odd and unusual to his personal experience that that fear that he felt because of it being so diverse from what he knows to be reality, that it felt like hatred and evil. Supposition. I mean, I'm just wondering, because so many other experiencers didn't feel evil or hatred.
Mm-mm.
Lynn, my wife, put a video in our messaging group yesterday. I think it was about the Angel Soldier, whatever. Did you watch that? It's a little
Not yet.
15-minute video about this woman
Oh.
seeing a um, waking up early in the morning. She said she could see light coming through the uh, the windows, so it was early enough for there to be sunlight, but still not early enough or late enough to get up. Well, anyway, she says she sees this thing, and it's got to be 8 or 10 feet tall, but she knows her uh, I want to say point of view her is just off because she only had like 8 foot ceiling. So this thing was obviously because she said she could see the door between its legs,
Oh
but
wow.
somehow the her viewpoint was so wonker wonky by this point that she saw him standing there in her hallway, but at the same time taller than her hallway, you know. But at first she was scared, and then she was like, "Wait a minute, look again." And she looked again, and she felt this peace and this calm come over. But this thing was standing there, covered head to toe in some kind of bright, shiny, silvery type armor. She didn't get a lot of details because it didn't last very long. But that's what I'm talking about. You know, we see something and we feel that fear, yeah, and that's normal. That's fine. I'm not discounting that at all. But it depends when we get that. How do we handle it? Do we flip that back on what we're experiencing and say, "Oh, they're evil and hatred because that's why I'm feeling afraid," or is it I'm feeling uncomfortable because it is so different? It's so totally out of my frame of reference. What did um yeah, Isaac said it. what we see appears to us in whatever form we believe in. And but like the Hat Man we were talking about, people in different areas of the world see different kind of hats. The same
Right.
thing, but how we respond is Isaac, we ought to purify our beliefs and thoughts then. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. It's a matter of being open. And on my what do I know little segments, that's how I close it. Question everything. Uh, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid. I mean, I don't want to ever come across that I would, in using the term negatively, question anyone's experience. If they experienced it, I accept that.
Hmm.
But I may question, like I said, the thing that puzzled me about Elmer, the golden retriever. Why was it a year later? I'm puzzled by that. I question what happened, not that it happened. See what I'm saying? If that person
Hmm.
says they experienced it, I accept that. I just like to ask questions. And if
That's how you
you,
learn.
well, true. And if you go back and listen to my what do I know segments, that's all it is asking questions. Could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be this? And like this one, seeing the Native Americans. Could it be, that wormhole that Isaac mentioned, a quantum aberration? There's there's just so much more out there, and and that's what this show is. Just looking at all the weird stuff that we think is cool, you know. And there was something else I was fixing to say, and was it to do with that story? I don't remember now. But right, okay. Well, we're going to call it a show there. We got 10 awesome stories, and we got some different thoughts on them too. That some of them could be ghosts, some of them could be fairies, some of them could be something else. Now, we didn't even go toward aliens tonight
No,
or today.
no, we didn't.
Some of those, I mean, like he said, if you believe in aliens, you know, could be aliens. You think you're seeing an alien,
Hmm.
who knows? Again, the experiencer. The only true and irrefutable evidence of the paranormal is personal experience. Watchers, thank you so much. Isaac, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yes,
And
thank you.
stay in touch, sir. Please stay in touch. We'd love to hear from you again. And until next time, 2 weeks from tonight, I don't know what or today, I don't know what the show's going to be about. We probably, I mean, who knows? We're talking about revisiting Route 66. We've been talking about our Smithsonian conspiracy for months. We've got several things we want to do. Appalachian cryptids. I really want, well, not just cryptids, but the folklore and stuff from the Appalachians. So we want to do that. Selena, thank you so much for your input tonight. You were awesome.
Thank you. I
And
enjoyed it,
little different spin tonight or today,
yes,
don't you think?
but I
Yeah,
like it.
because normally we don't stop over each story and break them down, but I wanted to do that and
Right.
ask those questions tonight and really dig into it. Watchers, thanks again for watching. Stay safe on your strange journeys. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.